Let's get started.
Okay.
So what do we have today?
Okay, so as I said, today's community goal is the 12th community goal, and here on these calls we usually like share our like community updates, talking about the product improvements we are having, and this time we are having some special guests here on stage from Otterspace and Noox, like two of our newly added requirement sources, and we invited them here to, after our general like product update, we would like to have a chat with like both of them and talk about like the integration, like how is it the most useful, like identifying the main points about like why we decided on integrating them. So yeah, this is for today's.
Before we get into the hot topics here, I would like to ask the audience because, like, recently there was a huge trouble in the Nouns DAO ecosystem and community, and now the Nouns are about to delete their Discord server. And I'm just very curious to ask you, like, do you guys like Discord actually? Like, personally, do you like Discord? And I created a very simple, just emoji voting inside the Claim Po-up channel. So please just take a minute and go there and click an up or a down button essentially, and just signal your preference if you like personally Discord or not.
Oh, so far we have zero no votes.
Zero no votes. That's interesting. Yeah. All right.
We even got a heart.
Oh, sweet.
This is just a spontaneous thing, so we didn't plan this, but I was curious.
Yeah, I just made everyone like public this channel so you can see it also, because it wasn't like public in the very beginning,
Oh, okay.
but it's all set now.
So claim Po-up channel and click on the emoji and tell us what you think. Yeah, but now we can start, I think.
Yeah, I can see that like most of the people like Discord. It's just going up and up.
Yep.
Sweet.
Seems like people like Discord here.
Yes. So let's get starting. What is it okay? Shall we get rolling?
Sure. Yeah, let's go.
Super. So let's start quickly with the latest guild updates and the improvements in general. First, I want to hit with the non-tech community updates, and then we can go into the products and then talking about the integrations. So first things first, about the community. Actually, it's super exciting for us because if we are talking about the members, like the overall members in numbers, we just hit like 300,000 guild members overall, which is super exciting for us because we just celebrated 100K not long ago and we just started growing. Even in our guild, we have already 22,000 member, which is super exciting, especially for me as like a community manager. Like I love seeing it, like how our community is growing, like organically. And with that, it's leading into the strategy wise kind of update I wanted to share. You know, like few community calls ago, we talked about the strategy. We started working on Vitrika and Bernat mostly. And in conclusion, seeing these numbers, how our community is growing and how different people are coming to the community with different like intentions, our conclusion is it's time to step up our game. So we are like the new strategy is coming in November. So we are introducing it on the next community call in like 2 weeks. And there's going to be some major changes in the member onboarding system, like the funnel that we set up, even like having more membership layers, more opportunities to just dive into the community, like so everybody can find like what they came for. And even we are upgrading our support knowledge base, so it will be much better for everyone to come here to ask for support. We can like give them like more guidance. So this is super exciting. It's gonna be in 2 weeks. We are just finalizing the last steps about it. So this is the non-tech kind of update I wanted to share. If you guys have anything to say, just let me know if I missed out on something before I go into the product wise. Do you have anything to say, Bernard, maybe about the community strategy?
Yeah, I just started a new voting in the Klimpop channel. Sorry for
Oh.
spamming this channel. I just like Raz's original one. So yeah, I like polling our committee. So let's just see whether they like this idea or the direction we are taking. But yeah, so I think Guild is a tool for community management, and obviously we have a thriving community on our own. So we definitely are experimenting a lot on you guys and with you guys, and thanks for the openness and a lot of feedback we are getting. But kind of the conclusion we came to is that at this size, there are more meaningful interactions in smaller groups. So what we are trying to achieve here is to really try to find, interests of people, experience level of people, and try to create separate areas for them. Obviously, there will be still the common areas, but also the smaller areas where there is a chance of like better and more intimate interaction as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's coming in 2 weeks. And besides this, our plan is to have a full-on workshop about like showing you like what was happening in the background, like how we figured out all the steps we took. So it's super exciting for us. Besides the community updates, there is some things to share product wise. First things first, I would like to announce you that maybe if you were checking out the requirement setups, you already saw it, but actually we have a new requirement type. Basically, you can set up like a Discord role as a requirement in your guild from now on. So you can choose from any server that you are an owner slash an admin of, even like in one that is not like specified as a reward in your guild. So even like you can choose Discord roles from Discord servers that are not gated in your guild. So with that, this is giving you the opportunity on doing like cross requirement setups on your different servers in your different guilds. And if I can say just one example, I would say it's really good. If you're an admin or an owner, you can have like verified role on, for example, you have a verified role on your Discord that's given by a captcha bot, and you want only those to be able to join your guild who got that role, that mentioned role. It's the perfect requirement setup for you. This is the example that I came up with. So it can like make your life easier, because I know that like there's so many people who are using these captcha bots against like bots and like like spamming attacks, like phishing. So if you are using one of these captcha bots, you can have this requirement set up in your guild also. So it gives you like more security, privacy against these phishing attacks.
We should write some article about this.
Oh,
Who is doing that?
Oh, Bernard is the good one in the team.
Okay.
Who's really good in writing.
Yeah, but like generally we are having a lot of discussions within our team and also with our friends in the space about kind of bot attacks, civil attacks, and just generally like security, and not only wallet security, but how do you make your community secure? And I think like we are also trying to think how the guild product can go into this direction, how we can help to protect servers better, to verify that everyone is human with a good user experience and member experience. But it's a complex issue for sure.
Oh, yes. Besides this, we have another like minor improvement. It's about the NFT requirements. If you are setting up an NFT as a requirement to gate a reward, now if OpenSea doesn't provide metadata for an NFT, users can enter it manually on Ethereum mainnet. So this is something like it's smaller, like it's a minor improvement, but still something that we felt like important to share on a community call about our product. So yeah, and besides these two product improvements, now I would like to start our like co-hosted, co-joined conversation with our special guests, because besides these two, we have two more integrations that we want to focus on today, which is Noox and Otterspace. So hello guys, like welcome here again on our stage. So let's get going. As I mentioned before, our goal is to identify like the main points about like how our integration is the most useful. But before further ado, I would like to like welcome you guys and just ask you like for a short introduction, like a brief overview. After that, like what your product is about, like how it started, like introduction of you, and after that the story behind the project, like how it started. And I'm gonna give the stage to Bernard to host this whole conversation.
Right. Hey guys. Hey Henry. Hey Raul. Just maybe a few sentences before we get started. So maybe you noticed on our Twitter account and in our Discord that we started churning out integrations. So on the product level and with the tech team, we prepared a little bit for this. We are always trying to open up Guild more and more, not just on the community side, but on the technical side as well. So our current step is that we made it quite easy to integrate new requirement types, but the end goal is to completely open source it at some point so that anyone can plug in their own data sources. But until then, we are also kind of scouting the space and trying to see like which projects and products are offering some real value, which are taking a unique approach and trying to work with them. And I think both of our guests here are prime examples for that. So Henry from Noox and Ro from Otterspace, welcome. I think there are some similar threads in both of these stories. So let's just make it like three-way or more than three-way conversation here. So maybe let's just start with some intros about yourselves. You can drop some fun facts about why you are working on what you are working and kind of how you got to this point of being on the Guild community call.
Awesome. Should I start?
Yeah, please do.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, first off, thanks for inviting us to the community call. I'm super stoked to be able to share what we're doing to all the Guild community members. So, hello everyone. So my name is Henry. So I'm currently working on Noox. So Noox is a community curated badging protocol, or to put it differently, it's an open platform for creating on-chain achievement badges. And these badges are non-transferable NFTs, and it contains information about a specific action that happened on-chain. Actions like transfer, swaps, donate, mint, claim, and also the data that gets recorded in these event logs, like duration, size of the transactions, the volumes, and etc. And the origin story, the story behind the project is I've been building in crypto since around 2016, and I've always thought one of the most kind of under-addressed or less experimented field of crypto was identity, and how that can play out in the broader context of like protocol design and community engagements. And when I'm speaking about identity, I'm not talking about solving like digital identity problems with personal, real world data about yourself, but simply the idea was to use like crypto native data to build crypto native identity. So the start of Noox was me and my co-founder trying to figure out, what is the best way to contextualize transaction data. And so Noox is actually no 0x, meaning, meaning behind the name being our vision to make data more human readable. So I guess our first MVP end of last year was a website where you type in any ENS or wallet address, and it will show you a profile-like page with these action tags that we preloaded to all active ETH wallet addresses, which were, very basic visualization of your on-chain actions, like the number of swaps on Uniswap, number of votes on specific DAOs. And with this initial experiment had a lot of great feedback, but in my personal opinion, it had like two key problems. One, the data that we created, the badges, were not composable, and we didn't want it to simply be an API provider. And two, the process of identifying these actions associated with given smart contract was very manual at the time, and it was very time consuming for us. And so through that learning experience, we made a new approach, and that approach was one, make these data back on chain so that it's composable, hence the decision to make it as an NFT. And two, open up the badge publishing tool and the actual curation process to public in order to harness the power of collective intelligence and let the community use their creativity in creating and contextualizing the smart contracts. So I believe what we're doing today is, building the next perimeter for Web3, a social Lego, as I would call it, and being able to work with projects like Guild, is the first step for achieving that. So really, happy for the integration and happy to talk to everyone in the community.
Awesome. I really like this origin story because it's something so classic, and I think this is how it's done. So basically, you put open data from the blockchain. You did something interesting with it, just very rough, very simple. There was interest, so you kind of just double down on that and build the whole thing on top. Yeah, love that. Raul, do you wanna share a few things about yourself? About Otterspace, how you got here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be part of this call, the community meeting. Have met some amazing people from your team as well. So my name is Rahul, or my handle R Square. I'm one of the 3 co-founders at Otterspace. And at Otterspace, we're basically building a non-transferable token protocol that we call badges to create better incentive structures for DAOs and communities that will significantly help them to definancialize their governance. And the origin story is that we actually didn't start with an idea. We started with a problem. We started talking to people from DAOs and communities, and one of the things that we really zeroed in was onboarding. But however, we quickly realized that one of the underlying problems from there on was a lot of people felt that communities and DAOs were hyper financialized. And if you're in a position of wealth and influence, you can basically buy reputation or buy tokens, for example, right? And we imagined a world where instruments like reputation and governance that cannot be transferred. Since then, we started building this open source protocol at Otterspace, but we also started building a primitive, which is an EIP 4973 that we call account-bound tokens, which is our interpretation of soul-bound tokens, basically. And we've been driving that primitive and the protocol and forward with the community, with the help of the community and fellow builders. And one of the big use cases that we see for DAOs is to represent their entire membership directory through these badges and automate permissions across various integrations like Guild. So you can have your entire teams and your sub-DAOs and sub-communities be represented through these non-transferable badges, and then you can be using them to kind of access resources, assert influence, or participate in governance. And yes, we're super excited to see this integration come alive, and it's the starting of getting bigger communities getting involved. So yeah, thanks for that, and happy to be here as well.
All right, thanks so much for this intro. So both Noox and Otterspace are dealing with badges. They are issuing badges on behalf of communities and on behalf of individuals. So there are a lot of different protocols out there doing badges, but there are always like little bit different angles, and I think like both of you are quite well differentiated. So like I want to imagine a community who uses both Otterspace and Noox. So like what's kind of the value of each of these protocol respectively, and how they should be used together? Like, can we do a little bit of thought experiment here?
Yeah, okay. I guess I could take a kind of first stab at it. I think to take a little bit like a step back, to give a little bit more context, I guess. On the Guild announcement about the Noox integration, you guys explained Noox by saying that members can collect on-chain achievements to visualize their milestones, and it unlocks possibility for admins to have more granularity in communities. So. And I thought you guys had nailed it 100%. And I feel like both Nukes and projects like Otterspace are, I don't think we're meant to be. There's meant to be like a single player. And I think project platforms like Guild is aggregating all these different informations about certain users or certain communities, and that just helps better contextualize just everything. It allows you to provide higher dimensional understanding about it. So I think there's a very much a high room for collaborations, and the value of nukes I think starts with users being able to prove what they did on chain. Some actions are just facts and doesn't really mean much, like registering for an ENS. The badge itself doesn't provide much social context, and there are obviously better ways to expressing these actions, like having it as your Twitter handle. But others can represent certain reputation inside a given community. It conveys certain social context, a commonly understood knowledge amongst the members of the community. So we have this badge called Ethereum Before the DAO Fork, aka the DAO Hack Survivor badge. And only the users who've created transaction before July 2016 or block height 1920000 to be precise can claim this badge. And everyone in the Ethereum ecosystem would agree that this is a pretty OG thing to be able to prove. And now that was a very unique badge, but you get the idea that certain actions convey certain social context inside a community, regardless of how big or small that group is. Some context might be more interoperable between communities. Some context might not be interoperable, but now from the community builder project perspective, another kind of key value that these badges provide is that for protocols or project, you can now better understand who are their heavy users, who are their heavy contributors, who are their loyal users, much more accurately than any other kind of methods available in crypto today. And now that you're able to identify and measure these engagements, you could start to incentivize certain actions or behavior that are deemed positive. And I heard Rahul mention that it is about de-hyper financializing these DAO engagements. So I totally agree with the approach that Otterspace have as well.
Yeah, I could chime in with some of my thoughts. Thanks, Henry. So I personally believe that this classic way of looking at competition is a very Web2-esque way of kind of approaching problem solving. I think in Web3, a lot of people I run into, we already have a lot of things in common in a way that we are thinking of a very positive sum approach, right? So we often talk about this at Otterspace, and that's one of the reasons we build a lot of we build the protocols in a very composable, modular, and interoperable way. So we actually think it's not competition, but it's cooperation and competition together, which is we use this term co-opetition that really elevates us to the next level, how we can do things differently in Web3. So to answer your question directly, like how we can imagine a world with, like, for example, Nukes and Otterspace can live together. One of the it's really the problems that we are looking at, for example, for us is to kind of separate governance from equity ownership, and that fundamentally unlocks a lot of actions. So For example, we recently learned, I did a presentation at DevCon in Bogota only last week. There was a hack in mango markets where a hacker exploited the protocol for like 100 million, basically turned around, created a governance if they should return the funds, basically used 32 million of those tokens to vote. So, and then pass the proposal. So basically what we're challenging is this notion of one token, one vote. I think we can do better, and then we should move towards one account or one human, one vote. And finally kind of getting us to a position where there's increased civil resistance in a community, especially when we start to make coordinated decision making, right? And that's where Otterspace can really be helpful. So we already, like, for example, you can join through the guild integration to your community and then use your badges to vote, basically. So it's like vote through your badges, not with your tokens, and move away from plutocracy. And this needs to not only happen within DAOs, but also like in Web3. And more philosophically speaking, we feel like a lot of Web3 and DAOs, they are going to build the next generation of the internet. And I think, and it's super important for us to make sure it is like inclusive and equitable. And I think voting via badges, for example, is a big use case that we kind of foresee. And then it starts really with membership and joining communities through especially via guild, and that's where we see setting the foundations of this new era, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah. One question to both of you about the badges. So, they typically these badges have like a nice visual as well, but we are talking here about use cases, how they are used as input for something like guild as access management. So it might be a funky question, but do you expect these badges mostly to be read by humans, and that's the primary value that I can signal that if we are talking about Otterspace, that I'm part of this community. If we are talking about Noox, it's kind of like I've been there, done that type of credential. So it's more like showing off person to person, or is it mostly an input to some software like Guild, which kind of grants you access to things and enables you to do things? So like, let's say we are talking here mass adoption, 3 years down the road, everyone is in Web3, everyone is happy in the world. Like, are they gonna be mostly read by humans or by algorithms? Raul, if you wanna start. Sorry, I should call you out, guys.
No worries. I can start. So I think the key difference to help answer that question, what distinguishes Otterspace, is that because we looked at consent very deeply. Because it's a non-transferable token, we wanted to take privacy and consent really seriously when we designed this protocol. So a badge an Otterspace badge can only come into existence when it has a peer-to-peer issuance. So there are two parties being involved in a badge creation. So an issuer and a claimant, for example. And that has to be signed and captured on chain. So without which you cannot actually have a badge. So there is a social provenance established between people or between accounts, for example. And currently, in a more specific technical terms, you cannot perform these signatures as a wallet or as an account or a contract. So in terms of Otterspace badges, it's very much a human-to-human interaction, and it's to kind of create, because we're squarely looking at communities made up of human beings. So we are squarely focused on that part. But I do imagine a world where I think more automated or actors or NPCs, for example, could come up. But for now, we are very much focused on peer-to-peer issuance and human-to-human connection there.
Yeah. Also to kind of answer briefly. So I think initially we thought when we were designing badges, there were kind of vanity type of badges, and there were utility type of badges, and I think they're both kind of interesting use cases that we can kind of imagine. But structurally, thinking about the structural design of the badges, so all of the information that are part of our badges are also a separate metadata. So things like swap is a separate metadata for these badges. And we're actually in the process of developing separate kind of tools so that all of these metadata can be separately kind of loaded to different interfaces depending on the use cases. So the entire NFT images may not be required for certain use cases. Maybe you just need the fact that maybe you just need to filter every badges for a specific actions, for example, and then to show that on the interface layer. So these are all kind of composable metadata building blocks that can be separated. And also, as we are working with different projects, there are a lot of desire for them to integrate certain aspect about the badges or the actual process of claiming, creating, claiming, and using these badges natively embedded to their interfaces and applications. So I think that there's also room for very interesting need to be presented, in a human-to-human interaction, but rather between human or user to protocol interactions, where protocols are only needed to identify one metadata associated with a single badge. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. It's kind of like the back end of your community structure, I guess. So and everything can just run on top of it. Yeah. I'm eager to hear about your take on community segmentation. So at the first half of the call, we talked a little bit about that, and that's something we are preparing for Guild. I think it's coming very, very soon, where we start introducing our new community structure. And obviously, badges are a great way to kind of have people get into sub-guilds, sub-DAOs, whatever we want to call them. So smaller groups where they can have a little bit more direct, more intimate connection with those who are more alike to them and can form deeper connections on or can learn together, can build together. So how do you think about community segmentation in your own community? And I assume I know that in the Noox Guild there are like 100 or so roles. So I guess you are going very, very granular. I think you are the top guild by number of roles. But yeah, I'm eager to hear kind of your approach and strategy. If you wanna start, Henry.
Yeah, sure. So we have 110 roles. Guild with the most roles on guild.xyz. So we're very proud about that. So currently, how we're kind of testing, community segmentations using badges via Guild is we have a few things, I guess. So all the badges currently are roles within a Noox Discord channel. And on top of that, we're also given different, I don't know if there's a terminology for this, but like main roles, depending on the number of badges claimed. So from like badge claim 0 to 5, we give like fish roles. The people with, 30 plus, badges claim are given like this crown, roles, and you can actually see the main kind of roles as emojis next to your, handle, right? And we've seen very interesting kind of experience where users kind of go through this gamified experience where they want to kind of achieve higher tier roles because it gives them that sense of accomplishment, that visualization about their journey into a Noox community. So that was really an interesting kind of thing to observe. And there's so many things that we we want to try inside Noox community using the badges. So as you mentioned, creating like a sub channel for people who are active on DeFi, for example, who are like collectors of certain NFTs. And so we haven't had a chance to kind of experiment that solely within our Discord channel, but as now with the integration, I'm hoping that a lot of the projects would engage in these experiments themselves. Maybe they could start to maybe they want to create their own badges, or they could also use existing badges that make sense for their communities. So I'm actually very eager to see how community use Noox badges now that the integration is here. But yeah.
Awesome. Raul, how do you think about segmentation? Do you either in your own community, in the Otterspace community, or the communities you are working with, you are onboarding to Otterspace? Like, are you going very granular? Are you taking a more high-level approach?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So one of the things, like we started creating this, like having some key principles. So we are not very prescriptive or too opinionated, because in our experience, what we've seen is communities and DAOs, they come in various shapes and sizes. So not everything that works for one community may work for the other, but there are definitely some brilliant basics that we saw. So and what we've noticed is that organization structures or topologies, they are evolving and changing, but not reputation, for example, or identity, for example. So we needed to separate these. So we actually have a two-token model system. One is badges, which are non-transferable tokens, and then the other is called a raft token, which is a classic NFT, which represent the organization. A fun fact, a group of otters are actually called a raft, and that's why we use the name raft token. So these badges and raft have a relationship. And what we've also noticed, a raft, when it represents a communities generally tend to be bottom up and more grassroots. And so what we started creating also is like an opportunity to express your community with sub-DAOs and go very granular. So to answer your question directly, we support very granular structures. But one of the things we had done is separate organizational structures from non-transferable reputation like identity, and that's how we see there. But because again, going back to like DAOs are very different, and they're coming in all shapes and sizes, so we try not to be very prescriptive or opinionated there.
Nice, totally makes sense. I like that it feels like we are in a phase of like Web3 social, where obviously because of the bear market, there are less hustlers, less grifters, and more experimenting, and there are different models evolving. And kind of how I think about it is that like we are just gonna have like a big menu of proven use cases, and if someone wants to start a community, then they can just pick and choose what works for them and keep experimenting, keep iterating on top of it. So yeah, definitely in the spirit of competition. Nice, cool. Let's move on to some other topics. So we've been talking about badges as forms of identities, but I think one other thing commonly coming up around these topics is the membership lifecycle. So how do you think about? And I know Otterspace has some specific designs here about having indefinite sovereign tokens, and also like more kind of time-based restricted membership models.
Yeah. So we have different flavors to a badge. What we see is a non-transferable token is a reputation for sure, but when you start to think about how you use it as a utility, we are exploring time-bound parameters. For example, we see three flavors of a badge. One is a a non-expiring badge, or what we call a forever badge. And the other one is an expiring badge. And within that, we see actually two ways a badge can be expired. One is a very specific timestamp. For example, say this is a badge that expires on January 1st, 2023. That's something we are supporting already. What we are also supporting is that a dynamically expiring badge. And what that means is that when you mint a badge, it'll expire 90 days after you mint it. And the reason we did that is when we see communities, for example, like Bankless, and there are very large communities that work in seasons. We want to extend a way for new community members to join with a guest badge. So a guest badge would give you perhaps like say 30-day access into your community. You can try different things. And before you become a lurker, for example, you've at least tried it, and then all the permissions that were associated to that badge expire with it. So we see that as a necessary part of the batch lifecycle. And additionally, we added another layer that we're working on. It's called revocation and reinstatement, basically. So you as a community can revoke a badge. For example, if you're part of the core contributor team, you started in the guild community and moved on to Otterspace community, you want to show through your identity layer that hey, I was a core contributor at a guild community, but now I'm at Otterspace. But you shouldn't carry on the permission set and the access to resources that you've had, but you still want to signal that you want to your reputation interfaces that you were part of that community. So we see expiration and revocation as key parts of a badge's life cycle.
That's very interesting. And revocation, is that currently centralized? So you assign that rights to like the core team of like one person in the core team, or can we also build governance models on top of that? So maybe via voting, I can revoke as a community. We can revoke access to like a toxic member.
Exactly. That's the really ideal goal, the delegation of revocation to be community driven. So what we are doing right now, it's delegated to the owner of the RAF contract, which technically tends to be a Gnosis safe wallet. So it's a multi-signatory wallet, and that governance is kind of plugged in there. So, but we do see a feature where we support like community-based revocation, and we're also looking at account recoveries that are also community-driven.
That's super cool. I really like the Bankless example. Henry, do you want to share like what's your kind of favorite or most unique implementation you've seen in the community with Noox badges?
Yeah. Well, so far I think it's us, but I do want to kind of share how we think about kind of membership lifecycle as well. One of the key reason why we use the term achievement is to make distinction between like isolated or single credentials. So we like to kind of introduce this idea of achievements or progression into the crypto journey. So depending on what the publisher of these badges want, a publisher can create a single badge, say, donated 10 times on Gitcoin, or you could also choose to create a progression badge where you could create badge for donating 10 times, but then you also can create different tiers to show progression. So maybe 50 times, donated 50 times, donated 100 times. So a lot of the, I feel like a lot of the credential platforms, at least, are very, one-off, in my opinion. So I think experimenting with this idea of achievements that is progressive and that is, that is continuous, I think is a very unique kind of perspective that we're trying to kind of let the community play with that particular idea. But yeah, currently I think we've just started to work with projects directly and third party platforms at Guild. So yeah, I think up to this point, I think we've been the most most exciting use cases of our badges up to this point. Yeah.
That's very cool. I love the progression idea because that's very, very close to like how we are thinking about roles here at Guild. Obviously, there are communities which require more static membership roles, but even in our own community with the Guild growers and the Guild Noxes, we started introducing these level-based progression paths, and yeah, very, very, very eager to take that forward in our own community and also all the communities using it, because I think there are so much potential just involving community members, seeing a clear path, seeing a progression path, and just going through that instead of some of the chaos you would find in some of the DAOs, which is quite natural as well. Nice. I wonder if we should at some point take the integration further and mint guild roles as Noox badges. I think that would unify it, but I'm not even gonna start voting on that. All right. Cool. And I think we are slowly coming to the end of our discussion here. So maybe if you guys can share a little bit about, what if anyone is intrigued, and I'm sure many people listening to this are, like, where they can learn more about Otterspace and Noox and how to get involved with you, how to join your communities. Do you want to start, Raul?
Yeah, absolutely. So head on over to otterspace.xyz for to learn everything about us. Our community is slightly closed right now, and we are working with mainly our data cohort, but you are more than welcome to sign up to the waitlist. We will progressively open up the community. And we are pretty much we're live, and we're building the product mainly with our data cohort of the DAOs. And the fun fact, if you really like orders, you can go to ordercam.otterspace.xyz to see a 24/7 feed of floating orders straight from the Monterey Bay Aquarium that we are hosting.
I love that.
And I love to talk to more people. Feel free to DM me, reach out to me on Twitter. I'm accessible. Yeah, I would love to talk about Otterspace and give you random order facts as well.
Nice, like the other family. Henry, how should people get started with Noox? How should they mint their first Noox badges?
Yeah. So you can visit us at noox.world to try to see which badges you are eligible. And as I mentioned, we're opening up the publishing tool in the coming weeks. So in coming weeks, anyone can, come in, try to create and publish these badges. All you need to, you don't need to be able to code. There's no code. It's all templated based publishing tools. So as long as you have a basic understanding about particular smart contracts and the actions associated with it, you could essentially create these badges and let the community kind of play with it. So very excited for that release. We're experimenting a lot of things on our Discord channel, so come by on our Discord channel. We'd love to kind of get some feedback around use cases and how this Guild integration can be used in the future. I guess building one thing that I would like to say in closing is building an identity product is extremely difficult because you don't really need identity until you need it, like renting a car, buying a liquor. But I think what I love about Guild integration and being able to use roles within a Discord channel is that being able to add roles into your profile as an expression of your identity, in hopeful terms, I think is equivalent to the aha moment for Facebook when they added relationship status on their Facebook profile. So now being able to kind of show and express these badges through Guild on Discord and other kind of platforms, I think we'll be able to see wonderful kind of use cases just spun out of the community in a community driven way. So very happy about the integration, and thanks for inviting.
Yeah, same here. Very much looking forward to see those use cases emerging. All right, I think we are close to wrap up. Big thanks to both Raul and Henry for coming here and sharing a little bit about their protocols and integrations. And sometimes we would love to have you back. And also very much looking forward what our communities and new communities can do on top of Guild with Noox and Otter. So thanks so much everyone for coming.